So UFC 280 just wrapped up, and now we're going to be doing a very early preview and predictions of UFC Fight Night Kattar versus Allen. Grant Dawson versus Mike Medson, I believe, was meant to be on this card, but it's been rescheduled to 1 week after. So it's pretty interesting. It's going to be next week, which is cool, I guess, and or the week after. Sorry, but yeah. So this is going to be a couple of minute intro. I just want to talk about UFC 280 really quick. Very impressed with Islam Makhachev's performance. I picked Charles Oliveira to win. I was a pretty big fan of Charles Oliveira. I still am, sorry. I'm still a very big fan of Charles Oliveira. And I think we're going to see Charlie Aldo's fight in UFC 283, maybe against Beneil Dariush. And I'm pretty happy for Islam Makhachev, man. Yeah, I mean, I think he looked really good. The reason why I wasn't picking him was because he hadn't beaten anyone in the top 5. You know, his only ranked win was over Dan Hooker, who took the fight on short notice. Thierry Moises doesn't count. He wasn't ranked when he accepted the fight. And, yeah, he beat Olives. He won the first round. He was I think Olives was potentially on his way to winning the second round. I think there's a very good argument for that. But then, yeah, Islam dropped him, man, off a poorly timed, I would say, maybe poorly timed, jumping kick to the face, and yeah, he gets dropped, and then he chokes him out, which is very impressive. Very happy for Makhachev. I think he's going to be an active champion as well, which I love to see. He wants to fight. Volkanovski in Australia, and I'm going to be at that card, man. I'm going to be at UFC 284 in Perth watching live, so I'm going to get to see Makhachev versus Volkanovski, and man, I'm going to pick Makhachev to win that one. I think his size is going to be too big, but we'll worry about that fight when it happens. Let's talk about Kattar versus Allen here. Real quick predictions, obviously, early preview, and this is my first time looking at the card with you guys, and we will yeah, let's look into it. So Cody Durden versus Clayton Rodriguez on Tapology is scheduled to open up the card. I feel like maybe this fight could be higher up on the prelims, but I'm going to go with Clayton Rodriguez. I'm not ready to give up on him yet, man. This guy was like a massive prospect coming into the UFC. Like, people had really high hopes for him, which was kind of crazy. And after he beat Santo Curatola, looked really good on the feet against him. Before that, he wasn't beating the worst competition in the world over in Brazil. And then he fought CJ Vergara and he got robbed. I'm going to be honest, he got robbed in that fight. I don't understand how Vergara got the decision. And but the thing is, though, a close fight with CJ Vergara does not weigh very well on my books, in my opinion. I don't rate Vergara super highly, but yeah, I like Rodriguez's striking. He tried to wrestle Vergara, which I think was a little bit of his downfall, because Vergara is the better wrestler in that matchup. And Cody Durden's going to be the better wrestler in this matchup here. I think Cody Durden's got very underrated wrestling, which he could definitely use to win this fight. And I think on the feet, though, Clayton Rodriguez is going to be too much for him, man. He last fought 4 months ago. This is a pretty quick turnaround for him, and I like that for him. You know, he's a young guy. He's going to want to build up that record a little bit, get a couple of wins before he can maybe make a run in the rankings. I'm going to pick Clayton Rodriguez here. He's actually not favoured to win the fight on Tapology, which is interesting, but I'm going to trust Rodriguez to keep it on the feet and win the fight in that way. I feel like Durden, though, he's got heavy hands for 125, and he's got good wrestling, so he could snatch that fight that way. Christian Rodriguez versus Garrett, Allenfield, two guys that are, honestly, only in the UFC because they took fights on short notice. That's just the truth of it, man. Garrett Allenfield took a fight on short notice against David Onama, upper weight class at 145. He's a normal bantamweight, and so did Christian Rodriguez. He fought up at 145 against Jonathan Pierce, who's a massive featherweight, and he had a really good account of himself in the grappling, and that's why I'm going to be picking Christian Rodriguez to win this matchup. Christian Rodriguez, he beat Ryan McIntosh, really bad losing record, but I believe he was meant to have like more fights, but they all fell out, so he just fought this guy instead, who stepped in on short notice. Beat Junior Cortez on the Contender Series, and before that, yeah, he was beating guys on the regional scene. Garrett Allenfield, same sort of thing, you know, he was beating guys on the regional scene, and he fought David Onama on short notice, a rematch actually, because they had fought in the past at in the amateur sort of series. But I've got to go Christian Rodriguez here. The grappling that he showed against Jonathan Pierce upper weight class when he was so outsized was really impressive to me. I like Christian Rodriguez to win this matchup, and I'm going to pick him to win by submission. He got submitted by David Onama, this did Arnold, and he got submitted by this other guy a year and a half ago. Rodriguez submission's the pick. I think he gets it done inside the distance. His grappling looked so good against Jonathan Pierce upper weight class. It's pretty hard for me to ignore that. Sorry. Now, Roman Dolidze versus Phil Hawes. Oh, this is a tough one, man. You got Roman steal your wife, Dolidze. If your wife or your girlfriend's in the room when this fight is on, hide her. Because Roman Dolidze is going to steal her, man. Poor JP Bays. stole Cheyenne Velismus right off him. That's brutal and just really sad. But yeah, so Delidze's got a Cheyenne Velismus holed up somewhere in his basement in Georgia, and he's fighting. He's gonna be fighting Phil Hawes, and I'm gonna be, dude. I don't know. I feel like Phil Hawes is good, but Phil Hawes is not the most durable guy in the world. You know, like he gets hit and he doesn't fold, but he doesn't like getting hit. You know what I mean? Like he recently destroyed Duron Win, who's like 5'6" in this weight class. He beat Nasunan Imavov, which is a well-aging win. A well-aging win is also that Jacob Malkoon quick KO. Good win over Kyle Dalkaus as well. Roman Dolidze just knocked out Kyle Dalkaus pretty easily, but I guess I can't really ignore this weird performance yet over Laureano Staropoli. I'm going to go for Hawes here, but I think Dolidze, man, the power that he showed against Kyle Dalkaus, I feel like if he hits Phil Hawes with that same power as well, he could get a KO himself, but I'm going to trust that Phil Hawes lands first. So I'm going to go with Phil Hawes. Not confident. That's definitely one to look back in a couple of days' time. Now, Joseph Holmes versus Junyoung Park in this one here. Potentially a controversial pit take. I'm not too sure if it will be, but I do believe Junyoung Park beat Eric Anders. I know Eric Anders made a big deal about the decision. I think quite a few people disagreed with it, but I do think Junyoung Park won that one. And I'm just going to say it, man, right now, Joseph Holmes is not as good as I thought he was. I thought Joseph Holmes was going to be some crazy good prospect coming into the UFC. I was super high on him after he won on Dana White's Contender Series. He won Dana White's Contender Series, and then he fought on Fury FC, like on Dana White's looking for a fight card. And he came in, and he knocked out Genovan Party, who does have a 6-5 record, but this guy fought on Dana White's Contender Series twice. And then he fought Jamie Pickett, and then he lost to Jamie Pickett. And, you know, I kind of jumped off the train then. He submitted Alan Amadovsky after knocking him down, which I guess is cool, but Alan Amadovsky's just a punching bag. Realistically, I like Junyoung Park's grinding style, and he had a really good fight with a pretty tough guy. And who was it? I think it's Marc-Andre Barriot I'm thinking of. But yeah, Junyoung Park, good fighter. I think if he has to drag out a win, he will. I'm going to pick Park to win by decision in this one here. Maybe using the same game plan as what Jamie Pickett did and clinching up Holmes against the cage. Chase Hooper versus Steve Garcia. Yeah, interesting one here. Steve Garcia, a lot of people were picking him to beat Mahashate. I picked Mahashate to beat him in that fight. And honestly, like, you might not agree with me, but if Steve Garcia is going to win a fight, it's going to be against Chase Hooper. This is at 145. Steve Garcia is 6 foot, like, he's pretty big himself. I don't know how he's going to go about making the weight. And someone with Steve Garcia who's just got a really bad chin in general. This could be a really bad chin problem for him. But Chase Hooper, in my opinion, on the feet is not a KO threat. Steve Garcia has pound for pound maybe the worst chin in the UFC. I know there's other guys out there, but man, I feel like Steve Garcia is the worst. Like, this guy got knocked down by Charlie Ontiveros twice. This guy got knocked out cold by Mahashate in one punch. He went the distance with Luis Pena. That is a surprise to me. Wow. But yeah, I don't like the way that Steve Garcia is getting dropped in his fights, but I don't think Chase Hooper is going to drop Steve Garcia on the feet. Chase Hooper's striking is pretty bad. It's pretty bad. He's a grappler. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. He's fighting Steve Garcia. If Steve Garcia is going to win a fight, it will be over Chase Hooper, man. But I think Chase Hooper's still going to win. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. I think he's going to use that jiu-jitsu, and I think he's going to get a submission over Steve Garcia here. But I wouldn't be that surprised if Steve Garcia wins. I feel like, yeah, like, this is the thing. 9% of people picking him, but Garcia's problem is a chin problem. He's got pretty good wrestling if he needs to use it. And I don't think Chase Hooper's going to be able to knock him down on the feet. I'm picking Chase Hooper, but if Steve Garcia is like some massive underdog, like, I feel like maybe the odds will be disrespecting him a little bit there, in my opinion. Now, Andrea Lovsky versus Marcos Rogerio de Lima. Marcos Rogerio de Lima versus Blagoy Ivanov. It's probably one of the worst fights you'll ever see. I watched these fights, so you don't have to. Oh my god, it was so bad. I think Andrea Lovsky wins the fight, man. He's, damn, I feel like it's almost getting to the point where old man Arlovsky, almost 44-year-old Arlovsky, should be getting ranked opponents again. You know what I mean? This guy's on a 4-fight winning streak over prospects. You know, beat Chase Sherman, who at the time, you know, I guess, yeah, but he beat Carlos Felipe 11-1. He beat Jared Vandermeer by split decision 12-6, and then he beat Jake Collier by very bad split decision. But I feel like, I don't know, Marcos Rogerio de Lima could sleep him though. That's the thing. Marcos Rogerio de Lima, he's quite explosive and powerful. It's going to be tough. I might actually end up picking Marcos Rogerio de Lima in this matchup here, you know, like he hasn't got like many KOs recently. He exploded on Ben Rothwell, knocked him out in the first round, but we were still explosive enough when he fought Blagoy-Ivanov. Oh man, if De Lima wins, it's by KO, but maybe old man Lovsky can pull one more out and get one more decision. I don't know. It's such a tough one though. Now Trey Jaw taking on Josh Fremd. I've got to go with Josh Fremd in this one here. He took a fight against Anthony Hernandez on short notice, and Anthony Hernandez just did what he does to people these days. He put a wrestling and grappling pace on him. Like, he put so much pace on him, it's crazy. Like, Anthony Hernandez just has an unlimited gas tank. He might have some of the better cardio of unranked guys in the UFC right now. His cardio is insane, and Josh Fremd took that fight on short notice, and I just don't think he was quite ready for the constant takedowns and just grappling that Anthony Hernandez put on him. Now, Josh Fremd, when he fought on LFA against Gregory Rodriguez, this was a fight which I know for a fact the UFC was watching, because when Gregory Rodriguez won that fight, he got signed to the UFC, and I think that Josh Fremd was the guy that was meant to win that fight, because I think he was the guy that they were trying to build. And but since then he beat a guy that was 8-4, beat another guy that was 4-1, and then he stepped on short notice against Anthony Hernandez and lost the decision. But he's in the UFC now. He's fighting Trey Gore, a guy that I personally didn't rate that highly, and just kept getting convinced by other people to pick. You know, I picked... Oh, no, I did. I picked Trey Gore to beat Brian Battle. And then I think I picked him to beat Cody Brundage as well. Like, that's just two really bad picks. But I think what happened is I was trying to fade Trey Gore, but there's just so much hype around Trey Gore, which I never really understood. And people just ended up kind of like... not changing my mind, but I would just say like maybe I kind of bought into that Trey Gore hype. And now that he's on a 2-fight losing streak, you can't ride the Trey Gore hype train right now, man. I think Trey Gore's going to lose. And I'm going to pick Josh Fremd to knock him out. Trey Gore only got knocked out 3 months ago. You know what I mean? And the thing is, even then, like, there's just so much hype around this guy who has beaten no one. He won by split decision in his debut to a debuting guy. Then, like, beat a guy by doctor stoppage 4 years ago, 1-0. And then a guy 2 years ago that was debuting. I just don't know what. It's so crazy, the hype that this guy has behind him. That, yeah, it's weird. It's a little bit weird. Now, Waldo Cortez Acosta versus Jared Vandermeer. I'm picking Waldo Cortez Acosta here. Jared Vandermeer has a path to victory. I know it's shocking, believe it or not. In this matchup here, Waldo Cortez Acosta, I know this guy well. I like this guy as a big prospect. He, in the Thomas Peterson fight, I did a lot of research on this fight, and I actually picked Thomas Peterson to win that fight. And that's a very good win. That's a very good win for Waldo Cortez Acosta. I cannot stress that enough. A win over Thomas Peterson means something, man. It really does. And before that, he wasn't beating the best guys. He beat Mo Doris, though, who's was in Bellator at the time. I believe he's also fought in PFL in the past. That's a good win to have as well. And then just knocked out Danilo Souza in the first round as well, and that's also a pretty decent win as well. Danilo Souza was 9-1, and not really a guy to mess around with. And now Jared Vandermeer, 4-fight losing streak right now, because he's got negative fight IQ. You know, like, here's the situation. So he's fighting Alexei Olenek, and what do you do when you want to fight Alexei Olenek? You don't want to take him down because you don't want to be on the ground. What does Jared Vandermeer do? He takes down Alexei Olenek. Alright, that's all good. And then he fights with Chase Sherman. Now, Chase Sherman, a pretty big losing streak, only in the UFC because he took on Romanov on short notice. And, so Chase Sherman, you fight Chase Sherman. What is Chase Sherman good at? He's good at boxing. He's a former BKFC champion. And he is a pretty good boxer. So what does he decide to do against Chase Sherman? Does he decide to take him down? Does he decide to use his wrestling? No, he decides to box with Chase Sherman, and he gets knocked out because of it. Only 3 months ago as well, 2 months, 4 weeks ago, 3 months ago that it happened. Like, Jared Vandermeer, the fight IQ of this man is just, it's concerning. Waldo Cortez Acosta, he's really good at boxing, but I feel like you could out-wrestle this man if you really committed to it. I feel like he could be out-wrestled and beaten on the ground. Because that's all he is. Honestly, that's all Waldo Cortez Acosta brings is boxing. He doesn't throw many kicks, and he just does a lot of boxing. I know this is a very long breakdown for this fight and my early predictions, but I know a lot about Waldo Cortez Acosta. I've watched all of his fights. I genuinely have, because Dana White's Contender Series. I love Dana White's Contender Series so much, man. And I was doing a lot of research for that card. Did a lot of research on Waldo. He's a guy to respect, man. He's just a good boxer, but that's all he brings. So Vandermeer's got a path to victory, he does. But Waldo Cortez Acosta by KO in the first round is my pick. That was a very long prediction for a guy that I'm just going to pick to win by KO in the first round, but it is what it is. Now, Dustin Jacoby taking on Khalil Roundtree. Khalil Roundtree, low-key, on a pretty good return. I wouldn't say like a career turnaround, but I'll say it's a pretty good return. He's definitely looking a lot more in shape than he did against Pragnio and Neon Kutalaba. I feel like he's a guy that's been in the UFC forever, man. This guy was on the Ultimate Fighter, I feel like years ago, like in one of the earlier seasons, right? Ultimate Fighter Season 23, not an early season, but still in 2016. And he's been in the UFC since then. He's fought a lot of times in the UFC as well, which is good for him. But I'm going with Dustin Jacoby. I feel like this is a fight where Dustin Jacoby should be fighting a ranked guy, and he's instead getting Khalil Roundtree. And I'm not that mad at it. I think that Dustin Jacoby wins the fight. I think he's the much better kickboxer in this one here. I picked Daeun Jung to beat Dustin Jacoby, by the way, guys. And, yeah, Jacoby dropped him. He walked away. I think it was potentially an early stoppage, you know, but I guess at the end of the day, Daeun Jung would have just been ground and pounded out anyway. So I don't think it was a bad stoppage, but I think maybe you could have given a little bit of time. But beat Mikhail Oksaychik in a pure boxing match, and that's what Mikhail is, just a pure boxer for the most part. Beat John Allen when he was on roids, and then he beat Darren Shield as well back in the day. I feel like it's about time we give Dustin Jacoby a ranked opponent, but I guess a win over Khalil Roundtree won't hurt his career, and I'm going to be picking Jacoby. I think he's just a much more technical kickboxer. He's a former Glory kickboxer. He's just a good kickboxer. Khalil Roundtree, he's coming off that brutal win over Modestas Bukauskas and that brutal win over Carl Robertson. The way that this guy wins fights is brutal. He sidekicks poor Modestas Bukauskas' leg and ruined his leg. And then when he dropped Carl Robertson, he just started kicking his body when he was on the ground like he owed him money. Like, that was crazy. The way that Roundtree wins fights is wild, but I'm going to be going with Jacoby in this one here. Now, Tim Means versus Max Griffin. Another one, man. Yeah. You might see me pick Tim Means. I don't think it's going to happen. I've got to go with Max Griffin. Both of these guys are pretty old, man. And Max Griffin, I think he fought Neil Magny on short notice and actually gave Neil Magny quite a few problems. I think he actually hurt Magny. I believe it was the first round. That happened to be coming off that win over Condit and this other guys. Destroyed Ramiz Brahimaj's debut. And Tim Means is coming over that loss to Kevin Holland, but he's giving Kevin Holland a couple of problems at times. You know what I mean? And I feel like both of these guys are veterans. Both of these guys could win the fight. I think it's pretty competitive. I'm going to go with Max Griffin, though. For the most part, I think he's going to keep the fight on the feet and use the striking to win the matchup. Sorry, guys, I'm so tired. I've had no sleep, like, whatsoever. Yeah, another one. Calvin Kattar taking on Arnold Allen. I like this fight, and the reason why I like this fight so much is that the winner of this fight's getting the title shot at 145. Because what's Josh Emmett doing right now? He's sitting back and he's doing nothing. So what are these two doing? They're fighting each other, you know, for that number one shot. What is Yair Rodriguez and Josh Emmett doing right now? Nothing. I feel like the winner of this fight might get the title shot over Yair and Emmett just because they're the guys that are actually doing something. You know what I mean? They're actually getting out there and fighting. Now, who is the pick? I haven't thought about this that much. Yeah, it's the whole time it has low-key been Calvin Kattar. I'm going to pick Calvin Kattar to win the fight. He beat Josh Emmett on my scorecard. I don't understand how Josh Emmett got that win, but it is what it is. He dominated Giga Chikadze because as soon as he started threatening with takedowns, Giga Chikadze kind of gave up and he also gassed out as well. Lost to Max Holloway quite brutally, but took a lot of time off and then come back. Beat Dan Ige, which is not a well-aging win right now. Dan Ige's on a big losing streak. Beat Jeremy Stevens, which isn't a well-aging win either. Stevens isn't looking that good in the PFL. Arnold Allen, though, you know what I mean? Like, his last win was 6 months ago over Dan Hooker, and Dan Hooker came down to 145, and that's a good win. I'm not going to take anything away from that fight. Dan Hooker's a good win. Even Hooker at that point was a good win. You know what I mean? And I think it was a good win for Allen, you know what I mean? But he beat Sadiq Youssef, which is aging pretty well. Beat Nick Lentz way back in the day. Melendez as well, Jordan Ronaldo. I feel like these guys that he's beaten, I feel like he's even if he beats Kattar, he might be one fight away from a title shot, honestly. I know he's undefeated in the UFC and on some crazy win streak, but Jordan Ronaldo ain't in the UFC anymore. Gilbert Melendez, I don't think, is in the UFC anymore. Nick Lentz, I think he's still in the UFC, but he's way down the bottom of the pack. Sadiq Yusuf is a ranked opponent. Dan Hooker, I don't even think he's ranked at the 155 anymore. Yeah, it's a tough one. I've got to go Kattar though. Stylistically though, Arnold Allen, in my opinion, is going to be the faster fighter. I think maybe Calvin Kattar is going to hit harder, and it's going to come to that. And I think that Calvin Kattar is going to hit harder. That's it. Well, everyone's picking Allen. That's interesting to me. Allen's never been in a 5-round fight in the UFC. Kattar has a few times. I think that also is going to help him a little bit. And like, call me crazy, call me a hater, but Allen did get hit a couple of times by Dan Hooker. He did, and even in the finishing sequence, right before Arnold Allen did finish Dan Hooker did hit him with a very nice shot. I can't remember if it was a right or a left hand, but it was a straight punch, and it hit Allen pretty square, and it didn't like hurt him or anything, but knocked him off balance. And I feel like maybe if Calvin Kattar can find those same shots consistently, he can take over the fight and maybe win the decision. So I'm liking Calvin Kattar in this fight here. Yeah, I'm crazy hyped for this. I'm not actually super hyped for this card. I'm crazy hyped for this main event. The whole card itself is a bit of a meh card, honestly, but let's be honest. These fights are bangers. These fights are good fights. Durden versus Rodriguez should be a good fight. Rodriguez versus Allenfield should be a pretty good fight. Lizzi versus Hawes will be a good fight for sure. Holmes versus Julian Park should be good. Chase Super versus Steve Garcia could be interesting, but I think it will be somewhat boring. This could be okay. I think it might still be somewhat boring. Gore versus Friend will be a good fight. Cortez Acosta versus Vandermeer will be a good fight. All these will be good fights. They're all just good fights. It's a good fight card. I'm looking forward to it. So, yeah, road to UFC is well in a few hours, in 8 hours time actually. So I'm going to go to sleep right now at 4 p.m. And then I'm going to wake up in 8 hours time, watch road to UFC at midnight, go back to sleep at 4 a.m. And then I've got stuff to do tomorrow, man. I've got so much stuff to do. I've got to research this Bellator card, man. I'm making my Bellator videos tomorrow and haven't done that. Oh, I've researched the prelims for Bellator. I've got the main card to do. I'm looking forward to it, though. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.